What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. I'm Ben. Over the past year, I've been prepping both of the dual sport motorcycles behind me here for some off-grid camping adventures. I've taken both of them out now and just had an absolutely great time. I cannot wait to get out and do some moto camping again. This is going to be, I think, by far the most adventurous camp out that we've done so far, both the road riding and the off-road riding aspect of it. So for this adventure, I'm going to take a bike that's, well, a little bit different, and I think easily the most adventurous motorcycle that I have in the garage. That's right, the good old TW200. I do already have quite a bit done to this bike. If you guys want to see the entire mod list, I've got a video that I can put down in the description that shows everything that I've done, along with a playlist that will show each mod kind of step by step as I installed it on the bike. A couple of you guys have been asking what I think of this Tuss lift that I've been using over the past year or so. I do really enjoy having it around. It's so nice to be able to put the bike on it and be able to get it this high up in the air. It'll actually even go a little bit higher up. But the biggest downside is that I can't really stick either of these bikes on this lift. And actually, even the TW with a bunch of gear on it and filled up with fuel is pretty close, I think, to this 300-pound weight limit. And I'm not 100% sure where that 300-pound load rating really comes from, but I do know if you stick a bike that's a little bit heavier than what it recommends, you actually can't even really get the bike up in the air. The jack can't get started in its lowest position. So I would not recommend getting one of these things if your bike weighs more than that limit. Well, there we go. Really not too bad. Everything lined up really well. Everything went together pretty smooth. Really no complaints. Pretty happy with how it looks on here. Doesn't seem like it should be in the way too much, and it seems like we should be able to carry a lot of luggage on here. In fact, I'm a bit nervous that my Highland X2 rackless system is going to be kind of not wide enough to fill this out. I guess we'll see in a minute here. think what I'm gonna do is move those bags up one notch. So if you guys haven't seen this system before, you can mount these side bags in 3 different positions. I've kind of got it in the middle, so you could go down one to the middle or up a little bit. So I think I'm gonna try that and see how that fits. Seems like moving those forward was the right call. I'm pretty happy with where everything is. This is still a little bit close to the tire, but I don't really imagine that's gonna be a problem. I mean, this should really just hang down and maybe move side to side a little bit. I don't think it'll be an issue, but of course I'll let you guys know if I have any problems. On this side, I did end up sticking the exhaust shield kind of on the far side of the bracket here, or I guess the strap for it. Otherwise, it basically comes out to about here, and while that would be nice to protect this, I don't think this is actually going to be an issue. There's no way, again, that this is going to get that close. And that shield is now protecting my plastic from the bag, pressing it into the exhaust pipe here. So that seems like that all works pretty good. I don't know if I could comfortably fit a passenger on here, but if I had to, I'm kind of glad that I was able to leave the pegs on here. So we do have these Velcro strips here that will match up with the small dry duffel here. So that's got those on the back. And I actually had this sitting on the 701 for a while like this. I never actually took it out camping this way, but it does seem like this is kind of a nice compact option. I don't know how easily you'd be able to get into these side bags with this top bag on here. But with the medium dry duffel here, it definitely kind of hangs over a bit and really sort of makes it impossible to get into these, and even the bottle bag holders is kind of hard to get into. But obviously that's going to give you the most storage space. Well, there we go. Not bad at all. That really looks pretty at home on there. I definitely thought this was going to look sort of ridiculous, but honestly, I mean, it looks like it belongs up there. That bike is ready for some camping. I did get the front blinkers on here in order for them to sort of stick out to a point where they can be seen and look halfway decent. I did have to stick 5 or so washers on the inside here just to kind of space them off of that bracket. And it seems like that really works pretty well. I definitely like how those look way better on the front. Definitely cleaned up the back quite a bit too. I'm definitely glad that they now match my aftermarket taillight. And if you guys are looking for some sort of fender eliminator kit, I would say don't buy any of the options that are out there. I have not seen a good one where you get a nice big wide super bright taillight like this. I've got a video on the install that I did on this. Basically, you just buy the light, buy some shelving brackets and a few fasteners, and you just stick it all together, and it works really, really, really slick. I can put a link for that video down in the description. And because I still have the stock flasher relay on here, if I turn the signal lights on, it will basically just kind of stay in the on position because the flasher relay essentially doesn't know what to do. The fix for that though is incredibly easy. All we've got to do is swap the stock relay out for this aftermarket Tusk LED one. So all we've got to do is pull the stock one off here and then disconnect it. So I'm just gonna push in on that tab and then lift up on the sides. So the new one here is a little bit different. We don't have this nice little tab on the back to mount it with like the old one did. So I'll probably have to end up zip tying this in place one way or the other. But the plug itself is of course gonna interface the same. So that'll just plug in to the pigtail on the bike. So we've got an extra bit of cable here, and I definitely don't want that anywhere near my exhaust pipes. I think what I'm gonna do is kind of stuff this up behind the frame tube and then actually just zip tie the new flasher relay to the little rubberized mount in here. Now there we go, not the prettiest thing, but seems somewhat isolated. And now we should have some working turn signals, but we don't. We can't have an adventure bike without a GPS. So if you guys haven't seen it before, generally what I do to connect my GPS to all my bikes is some sort of action camera mount and then the sort of grafted portion from the back door off of a GoPro. You can also sort of make the actual mounts like this work. You just have to trim part of it off and then shave one side down. It's kind of a hassle. It works for me. It's not necessarily something I'd recommend though. And the reason that I keep doing it is just that it gives you so many different options for mounting pretty much anywhere you can stick a sticky mount or have a bar. You can buy some sort of GoPro mount or action camera mount that will let you mount it there. And of course we'll need something to power this. A while back I installed this cigarette lighter style 12 volt plug here. This is also a Tusk product that's just ran to the battery and has a fuse built into it, so this actually could drain the bike and actually has drained the bike. And then I just used the USB converter here along with a 9090 USB to micro USB, mini USB, I don't know, whichever one it is. This is a Garmin Nuvi 40LM. I picked this one up used off of eBay for $20, I think. Now, if it rains and it gets wet, if it gets really wet, it probably won't work anymore, but I usually just carry a plastic bag along with me and just toss it over when I wash the bike or when it rains. Definitely a good economical way to have a GPS, especially if you have multiple vehicles and don't want to be switching them back and forth all the time. If you guys caught any of the camping adventures that I've been on so far, you probably just saw me sort of stick my fishing pole up on the top of here and just sort of use the straps that are already here to hold it down. That works pretty well, but I think having something like this maybe will be a little bit nicer. So this thing is pretty simple. Essentially, you can mount it in sort of any orientation just by rotating it on the axis of this hole here. That will get fastened just to this block here via the threads on the inside there. You can clamp this piece to a bar this way or this way. That is, as long as these U-bolts will fit over it. So it actually looks like these U-bolts will only go one way. You'd have to buy some bigger ones to go around this direction, but I think where I've got it here, just kind of on this elbow, should be good. So I'm gonna kind of snug this down. I think maybe I'll stick this on a little bit of an angle like this. So I won't have to fold it down when I'm out on the road, and that's sort of the point behind this, but because we're in the garage, I'll need to do that. Oh, what? I gotta jam it down in there for some reason. Is that intentional? I mean, I guess maybe it is. Huh, I suppose that's kind of neat, then it locks it in place. So if I get a little bit too close to a tree or tip the bike over on the trail, obviously we're gonna have an issue with the reel there, but honestly, other than that, I'm really pretty happy with how that kind of holds the pole away from me and away from any moving parts and away from hopefully any mud and water. I don't know how well covered it's gonna be right there, but should be fairly decent anyways, better than hanging off the back like they usually are. I've never noticed a huge issue with the length of the shift lever on the TW200, nothing like the KLR 650, but I have noticed that I do kind of tend to put my foot somewhere around here when I go to shift, and that means that I'm not actually shifting on the special pad that they've got here. Now, I'm not really worried about how it's gonna make my boot look, but any extra wear and tear you put on your footwear is obviously gonna be a weak point if you have some sort of accident. So I decided to try the extended Tusk shift lever here. You can order this in just a regular length or in an extended version where at the end here is just a little bit longer. So I'll get this swapped out and we'll see what it does for me. Oh no, do I really have to pull the ricochet plate off of here? Nope, we got it. Certainly don't want to put too much stress on that shaft in there, because if that got broke off, that would be one big mess. I'm just going to give that shaft some back pressure there, and that came out real easy then. So I'll give you a little bit of a side-by-side comparison there. Obviously going to get quite a bit more length out of the Tusk lever. To avoid the sort of sticky situation that I just found myself in trying to get the old one off, I'm going to stick some of this grease on the splines. This will sort of help keep the dirt out of the splines, but it'll also help keep it from rusting. And I'm just going to stick a touch of Loctite on the fastener. Now we are going to have a bit of an option here of where we want this positioned. I won't really know for sure until I'm actually able to throw a leg over this, but that definitely seems like it's going to be in a better position and probably not half bad, just right where it is right there, honestly. It is important to check full range of motion though, just to be sure that you're not going to interfere with anything here. So it doesn't appear like this is going to be too big of an issue on the TW200, but usually I'm a little bit hesitant to stick these extended levers on any bike just because the stock lever is essentially in a spot where it's not going to contact the case. They sort of design the side case around where that lever is going to be, and maybe a little bit vice versa. But when you go to stick a longer lever on here, it's possibly going to be in the wrong spot. And you can actually see that here on the KLR 650 where it sticks past this sort of slot here that's in the side of the case, and also by the bit of a paint chip that this took out at some point when the bike went down. But like I said, it doesn't seem like that should be too big of an issue on the TW, at least not if I can leave it in this position. Because that's at a bit of an angle, it looks like that actually goes in there quite a bit easier. I don't really remember there being this much slop on the KLR, but it seems like I've got at least a little bit of an opportunity to sort of place this either a little bit in or a little bit further out. I'll probably just go somewhere in the middle. That certainly matches the blue on there. Now, whether I'm camping or just taking a quick trip to the store, I've found these Tuss tank bags really helpful and convenient. I've got the small on the 701 here and the large on the Gen 3 KLR 650. And I think the small probably would have been a good option for the TW200, but instead I decided to try these little side saddle bags here. I just kind of came across these when I was looking at something for a different bike and decided that it was worth a go. I am a little bit concerned that this side is going to be a little bit too close to the engine. There's just barely some breathing room there. So I'll definitely have to check on that as I'm riding this the first couple times. The opposite side over here doesn't seem to be too much of an issue. It is a little bit close to the engine, but shouldn't be a problem. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to like having these on the side of the tank. I think my legs are going to run into them when I'm sort of up on the tank. But I think it will be nice to have this area free. And I guess if you really needed the extra luggage, you still could, of course, slap a tank bag on top here. But these do have quite a bit of space inside of them, almost kind of like a tank bag. I guess maybe just not quite as tall, but obviously still pretty large, and you get two of them. So we'll see how we like those. So from what I found online, along with an LED flasher relay, the other thing we're gonna need to do is straighten the wiring out in this bike for these LED signals, because the way that the bike currently shows me that one of the signals are flashing is by passing electricity through a bulb in here, one direction if it's one signal, and then the other direction if it's the other signal. And with LEDs, you can only run current through them one way, where an incandescent bulb, it doesn't really care. It's just a filament in there that has electricity running across it. So because of this, we're gonna need something to kind of straighten things out, and this is gonna be the TST Industries diode kit for a bike with running lights. And because these Tuss mini stocks don't have a running light, it would seem sort of odd that I ordered the running light kit, but this is supposedly also going to make that indicator work correctly, along with just making these function correctly. Obviously, I'm gonna have a bit of a fun time trying to find a spot for all that junk in there, but I'm gonna turn the key on here and make sure this is gonna work. I think that's a good sign. How about the other direction? And look at that. We are in business. Sweet. So this is the majority of my camping gear. The clothes bag is maybe a little bit light, as is the food bag, but otherwise everything else is here, including tools and a raincoat and some water. I've also got my MSR hydration pack on my back, so this should be a pretty good test. Let's load this stuff up and take this thing out for a ride. didn't make it any faster, but it still gets up and goes fast enough, I think. I plan on pretty much taking back roads on this trip anyways, and I mean, I think really that's where a TW belongs, and even on my adventure bikes, that's really what I prefer anyways. It's just a much nicer pace than trying to do 70, 75 on the highway. As far as everything that I've done to the bike, and there are a few new things here since we talked last in this video anyways. If you guys saw the bar riser video, then you know that I stuck a different set of handlebars on here. These are the Moto Bend of the Tusk Chub bar. Absolutely love these with the risers. They work perfect. Sitting here, I mean, it just makes the whole cockpit feel so much nicer and so much bigger. As far as the bags on the front here go, I've got this one stuffed completely full with a sweatshirt, and it seems like that's actually sort of pulled the bottom away from the motor a bit. So that's a good thing, but it makes me feel a little uneven now because this one doesn't really have much other than just the camera bits and pieces in it. So I kind of squished down a little bit on that. So that makes it feel a little awkward, but other than that, it actually feels kind of nice to have a little bit more of something to grab onto, and they're kind of grippy. Can't really complain about that. It seems like you can fit quite a bit in there. It's nice having all that space up here. I really think I'm gonna get kind of used to that. As far as the shift lever down there, I don't know how much I want to be staring at my foot while I'm driving, but it seems like that is absolutely perfect. Definitely don't know why I didn't do that any sooner. Really like that. I suppose I should mention that with these bags here, I can sort of tuck my legs behind them a bit, and then that sort of protects me a little bit more from the wind, which is kind of nice. It's maybe a little bit awkward, but really not too bad. And then my back is sort of up against the camping gear on the new rack on the back, and I think if I shove that bag a little bit further forward, that would be really nice. Definitely can feel that there is some weight there, but honestly, it's really not bad at all when you're moving. Slow maneuvering on the road has been a little awkward, a little different, but the nice thing about a light bike like this is even when you load it down with gear, it's still pretty light. So, of course, it definitely still feels like I'm on a bike loaded down with a ridiculous amount of extremely lightweight camping gear, but a bunch of gear none the same, nonetheless. However, this is the most, come on, difficult hill on the land, and I can make it up, just barely. That was a bit of a sweaty ride at the end there, but I've got to say the bike really does handle pretty good off-road for all that weight on the back. Now we are fresh off of the sort of hard trails there, so I think that was going to be worst case scenario, and yeah, it's pretty warm. Almost feels like maybe this is bubbled out a little bit even. Not really sure, so that's not great. That's something I guess I'll have to keep an eye on, and that's a little bit disappointing, but also sort of just what's going to happen when you have such a small tank like this. Inside really doesn't feel that bad at all, actually. Honestly, I think my favorite mod, though, is just the fact that I finally wired in the 12-volt circuit to a keyed accessory wire, so when the bike is turned on, the GPS turns on, and when I turn the bike off, the GPS turns off. And that means no more dead batteries. I will say, though, the sort of weird feeling that I felt with the front end maneuvering at slow speeds on the road is definitely much worse off the road, and I think that's just because I've got all this weight on the back, and the front of the bike to begin with is just so light. So essentially, I'm kind of gliding around with the front end some of the time in really slow moving terrain, but that's usually only when I'm on the seat. If I'm up kind of over the tire, it's not really a big deal. And obviously this is a lot of gear on the back, so it's gonna perform different. That's just kind of a given. But with that in mind, I would say I'm really pretty happy and pretty excited to get this thing out on the trails that I've got planned for it to see how it'll handle out there. I think if it handled okay on the trails that I just took it on in my woods, I think it'll do great out there. And if you guys want to make sure you see that video and you've not yet hit that subscribe button, what are you waiting for? I put out a video like this at least once a week, so if you guys want to watch along, make sure you click that. Until next time, guys, take care, stay safe, stay swanky, get out, enjoy this beautiful world any chance you get, and if you can't do that right now, here's more videos to check out in the meantime.